So DC, like any place, has been impacted by music over the years, whether it be 1960s soul and kind of call to civil rights, more contemporary musics around hip hop or especially go-go, whether it's the jazz scene, all of these genres have had an impact on the people of Washington, D.C.
1939, Marian Anderson, the classical, they trained soprano, alto, from the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia, wanted to sing here in Washington. She'd always sang at Dunbar High School, classical music, but Dunbar was too small. They tried to get Cardozo High School, which was then Central High School, 2 blocks up the street. It was all white, they wouldn't let them perform. So they tried to get Constitution Hall, owned by the Daughters of the American Revolution. They would not let them perform. So Mrs. Roosevelt, perhaps one of the greatest first ladies we've ever had, if not the greatest, stepped in, resigned from the Daughters of the American Revolution, and demanded that Mrs. Anderson have the right to perform. She performed on Easter Sunday, right on the mall. And 75,000 people listened to the concert. Classical music, Ave Maria, the great song, Were You There When They Crucified My Lord? Were You There When They Laid Him in the Tomb? Played all these great songs, and millions heard it throughout the world.
That time was, so much happening in our country and in our communities that it really did lend music was the answer, to that, to solving problems. From dancing in the streets to, we should all be free, I'm Black and I'm proud. All of those not necessarily came from DC, but the message was for our nation, and we are the nation's capital. So that's just power in itself.
Oh, I mean, you can tie that into home rule. Black Washingtonians having to have their own separate civil rights movement post the official civil rights movement to get self-governance and to get a mayor and to have a city council and to be able to control their own destiny. And the artists, from what I remember, were very much involved in that. They were very much supporting, when you had the Marion Barrys of the world and gosh, it's funny how, you can see a politician's face, the guys who would come talk to us in the school and say, kids, stay in school, kids. And home rule becoming a very much a salient issue for Black Washingtonians because, you pay taxes and you don't have any say in how your life is run. So from that kind of activism to getting the Dr. King holiday, my mom took me to the march for that because it snowed, and Stevie Wonder performed in that song "Happy Birthday" that everybody now sings as a replacement for the "Happy Birthday." The Black folks we sing the Stevie Wonder song. He performed that. That was my first time hearing that song on a snowy day on the steps of the U.S. Capitol in support of the Dr. King holiday, and having local artists like Chuck Brown be there. Was, is salient and meant something. And then Chuck Brown, again, during the crack epidemic, he made a song called DC Doesn't Stand for Dodge City because of the gun violence. And guys like DC Scorpio, who made, songs like Stone Cold Hustler, which was really a cautionary tale about the dangers of, street stuff, and for at-risk youth. So activism has always been a part of the culture here, nonchalant, 5 o'clock in the morning, where you're gonna be out on the corner.
5 o'clock in the morning, 1996, what inspired 5 o'clock in the morning? The fact that I had to be out at 5 o'clock in the morning inspired me. What inspired me is going to the post office. I used to work at the post office, so I had to be at work at 6. So I was actually driving at 5. And I would see young men out during that time. They would be out rain, shine, sleet, or snow, just like the mail lady, the mailman or the mail lady. They would be out there and you knew what they were doing at that time. And I just remember sitting at a light saying to myself, I just really hope I don't ever see one of my nephews out here or a family member of mine out here because of drugs. And we all know that drugs has touched every family in some form or fashion. Nobody is immune. But I just didn't want to see it. And I remember saying that. the song 5 o'clock, the 5 o'clock in the morning, where you gonna be outside on the corner, it just rings still so true.
Get yourself together. Why you wasting all your time right along with your mind? 5 o'clock in the morning, where you gonna be? Outside on the corner. You better get yourself together. Why you wasting all your time right along with your mind?
I think one of the reasons why you never saw kind of a mainstreaming of Washington, especially in the hip hop paradigm, is because there's always a level of consciousness that people were not willing to shed to be popular, or to dumb their music down to appeal to the lowest common denominator, or to appeal to voyeuristic white artists, white audiences who really got a thrill from witnessing black dysfunction and urban dysfunction and suffering for their own entertainment. Black artists in DC were never willing to let go of the sense that they had a larger duty to their community. And that's something I'm very proud of, because everybody I know is an amazing talent, and they could have easily just said, I'm going to be a dummy and go sell, dumb music for people to get their kicks. But I think the artists here have always had that integrity, and it's probably due to the fact that you had a large black middle class who people weren't quite as desperate, and people had seen the results of what community activism could do in a positive sense. So they're like, if we can affect positive change in our immediate surroundings, then I don't need to do that. So the activism has kind of always been, it may not always be behind a podium with a microphone, preaching, but it's always kind of been the sub rosa of how art has happened here. And people have been very intentional about it. And, it's not something that is often noticed, but, it's here.
During the riots, with Mrs. Ali, Mrs. Virginia Ali, the great lady of Washington, they would put a song, say, Soul Brothers. They'd put the picture in the window because there were only 3 or 4 black businesses that were exist. And as I walk up and down Washington now, up U Street now, I see businesses, but I see very small. I see hairdressers, maybe a clothes shop, but nothing. It's really employing a lot of people that we would want. But the riots pretty much decimated the area. The 3 places that lasted were Ben's Chili Bowl, Rick's Flower Shop, and Industrial Bank. They are still here, thank goodness. But many businesses are forced to close. Black people could not get lines of credit when the Jewish or the Italian or the Greek people moved out from there, so they never could buy the place. But U Street was that place, and then it stayed pretty much barren until the subway came, and it brought it back. It brought, the Reeves Building and many other places like that. And during the period of Marion Barry, he did more than anyone, and probably more than any black mayor, brought the notion of elevating this black middle class.
Yeah, Marvin Gaye and the What's Going On album is speaking to like a very particular time and circumstances that were so significant that they needed address, even from somebody who had before that point been much more of the pop stylist. In this album, in the song What's Going On, he's speaking to that moment where we're in Vietnam, what's happening in the world, and trying to take stock of it, not necessarily in so much of a critical way, but just marveling at what is going on in the most concerned way. And so you find in music over and over again artists using their platform to make those kinds of statements. 1971 is a particular moment to be making that kind of statement.
And Marvin Gaye, rock his moonshots, spinning on the have-nots, about war.
When you talk about music like go-go and punk in particular, there is a sort of innate community but also politic behind it. And I think that eagerness and willingness and demand for attention of those ideas has been really important for making people feel heard and making their situations feel heard and observed. You don't get the punk bands of the 80s or the go-go scene either without the sort of tumultuous times that led to it from the 70s and the 80s. All of the punk bands in DC were just playing shows in front of the White House and demanding to be heard and arguing for their rights and the rights of the people that they were surrounded by. And the 930 Club being home for that and welcoming people of all creeds, of all genres, of all genders, of all races, that was where people could be who they were at their core and not have to worry about all of the sorts of judgments that they were feeling beyond those borders.
Sweet Honey in the Rock. And this is Bernice Reagan, the great Bernice Reagan, who just passed not long ago. And she had been a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee Singers in Georgia. And she came to Howard to get her doctorate degree and brought this music. And she sang this music throughout the world. Sang it to Mandela when he comes. Billy Taylor, I wish that I knew what it meant to be free. Duke Ellington created songs. He wrote songs, Black Band and Bass, dedicated to the Haitian Revolution. Shakespeare said, he who has no music or she has no music has no soul. And music can be such an important thing in this city. But what has happened is that cities must do more to help preserve this music, help preserve the institution. He has not done a very good job in this. It's important that this is not just black people's music, it's the music of America. There's no music that I know of born of these shores that has played such a role throughout the world. It's so important. And it's not just in itself jazz, any kind of music. You know, people get the idea that because jazz musicians are great, that they're innovative, that they don't understand music. Well, Duke Ellington wrote 2,000 tunes. Ornette Coleman, John Coltrane wrote these beautiful, very difficult transcriptions to read. They are studied people, studied men. Just like LeBron James, a great basketball player, people think he's just big, but he studies the game. He knows how to croon, like Willie Hopper shooting the ball. They study these things, and African Americans have used it, and they all use them to better the human condition.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.